So the first question is, can you elaborate on the differences between densities and dimensions, or are you using those terms interchangeably?
Kind of, kind of. A dimension is a region that has a specific density associated with it. And so you can talk about them, but they do have specific meanings. Um, the dimension, let's pretend, let me make something up. The um the fourth dimension, let's say it starts at 60, 60. We'll just say 60. Okay. It's an imaginary number.
Are you
Um,
talking about a frequency?
yeah,
Okay.
we'll say 60 hertz. Okay. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I should be more complete in what I say. And let's say that really, if we really want to talk in terms of a little bit closer to reality, anything above 40 hertz, other, you're getting into hybrid or overlap areas. So, and let's say that that goes up to, we'll say 80 hertz, maybe 90. So from 40 to 90, that's a long way. Okay.
Okay.
But people in 4D in that dimension between 40 hertz and 90 hertz have an expanded range. And that is the goal. It's to expand the range of what you can tune into and pick up. And so within that range, there may not be as many of the lower frequencies. Does
So
that
you're
make sense?
saying, oh, so if we're talking about 4D in
Okay.
comparison to 3D, so do you know what the 3D frequency is?
Yeah. Alpha, beta, theta, delta, high beta, gamma. Those are the frequencies of 3D. So
Okay.
it goes from zero, and this is just the humans assigned these numbers. We don't know where they really fall on the spectrum of frequencies. There could be 3,000 frequencies below us that we have no knowledge of.
Okay.
So, so zero to say 40 is the range for most 3D humans. And most 3D humans hardly ever even get up to 30. So
Okay.
when you get above 30, you're getting into the range of gamma. When you get up there, you are in a different mindset, a
Hmm.
different kind of information is available to you, and you see everything differently. The events are different. You see the causes, the energetic causes, you see the ethics all differently. And you also see the interaction of past and future lives having an impact. So we'll just make 40 the arbitrary cutoff point. When you get up into some of the higher frequencies, then you get let's remember the whole story in Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain about Nelia Mikhailova, the
Yes.
Russian woman who could could increase the frequencies of her brain to somewhere around 200, 220 hertz. And when she got up that far, she was blind in terms of 3D reality. She could not see what was happening in this reality, but she knew what was happening in this reality. And she was really just looking at the energies, and she could move things without touching them. She could identify things with her fingertips. She could see with her fingertips. It activates all of the capacities of the human, and those capacities exist in every cell of the body. So every cell can see, hear, smell, taste, touch, etc., take its own action, and so on. But that's a huge range. You're getting up into 5 and 6D when you get up to 220 hertz.
Okay.
So the frequencies that you exist within and use are of what we call a lesser density. Okay. So, some of the lower densities, when I look at them, they're all jammed together. And it's like layering. Do you ever make a smoothie and put it in the fridge? And then 2 days later, you get it out and all of the solids have come up and all the juice is at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's that kind of same thing that happens with densities. You get this real deep and dense gathering of certain frequencies at the lower level. And then at the higher level, you have a different range of frequencies.
Okay.
So that when you get so that you can access from 0 to 90 hertz, we say you have expanded your range that you can access. But if you're a 3D person, you kind of have to get outside yourself. This is the best way I can describe it. Because you're not normally deeply and intimately connected energetically to those 90 hertz frequencies. But if you can shift just enough and find a channel to get to those, then you have access to those. And so we say that it's less dense. Really, we are less dense or less able to access those higher densities because that's not our normal range. Okay. And you have to be able to let go of a lot of your own ideas and your own ability to hear and see and feel and move and all of that just a little bit when you want to get into some of the higher frequencies. So you have to expand without losing the connection.
Okay.
Okay. So there are field lines, electromagnetic field lines that keep all the cells connected, and they have a certain length typically. But when you start expanding, you stretch those field lines, and that allows you to move into other frequency zones and tap other information. And
Okay, so I'm not sure if I understand the field line. So is it a connection? Is that what you're saying?
it is a connection. So you've seen pictures of the Earth with all the magnetic field lines around it.
Yeah.
The same thing happens with your cells. Every cell has a whole bunch of field lines that connect it to other cells. So when you stretch those field lines, your cells literally move apart. You don't get any fatter or any wider. You just are less dense. And typically you don't stay in that for very long. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So
All right. So that kind of brings up another question too when you're talking about your cells and everything. So you have said in the past too, I'm going to expand this out off topic
go
just to
ahead.
hear. You said that everything has a consciousness and that every part of your body has a consciousness. So that means, we've talked about the BCX machine, we've talked about the Spooky 2 machine, those frequencies. So there's a frequency for everything. That would mean the same thing with your organs. So your organs each have a different frequency, or are they basically the same if they're like within a certain alignment by each other?
They all have their own unique frequency signature. And that signature is a composite of all of the cells that have their own frequency. And what you begin to understand when you're looking at a human and looking at the energetic human, the energy body, is that those organs are a composite of frequencies that are all working together, and they come together because of their spin, because of their rotation.
Mhm.
They're, they are magnetically attracted in certain ways. And so that's the arrangement of the frequencies and how they come together, what the lattice structure is of those frequencies or the pattern of those frequencies is, determines what the material is. And so that's why you don't have toenails growing on the edge of your eyes. You have eyelashes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are amazing creatures when you see the energy body. It's like, oh my goodness.
It's
Um,
just like you keep unraveling things and it's like almost too much to understand, because you're saying that you got all these frequencies here and all these frequencies here, but then we've got everything that's outside of the body and they all have frequencies
yeah. Everything is frequency.
and
Everything.
and everything has a consciousness.
Everything is consciousness.
Okay.
So you have some consciousness of this one little tiny particle, and that particle gets together as part of a cell, and now it's communicating with other frequencies. And then that cell has its own signature. And then that cell is in communication with a bunch of other cells, and that group has their own frequency signature as a group. And so you keep each group has a common frequency that they all respond to.
Okay.
And that really, that's how we build ourselves. That's how we are built. And as you gather more particles into more atoms, into more cells, into more groups of cells, the consciousness keeps changing. It goes from really, really simple and primitive. The consciousness of a cell is amazingly complex. We are astounding beings. We are like gods to our own selves. And that's just, it's the composite of each individual. And then when you get born, the minute you're born, you'll have an impression, we'll call it, of what is this place? What's going on here? And you'll have an initial reaction, hopefully, of being comforted, of being warm, of being loved, of being touched, of being invited, psychically, etc. And that first 72 hours sets your response to reality, your natural automatic response to reality for the rest of your life, unless you deliberately work to change it. So if you have a negative start and nothing changes that within the next 72 hours, nothing comforts you, nothing is warm, nothing loves you up, then you are going to have before anything else, you're going to have a negative reaction. And that chemistry, that frequency set that responds to something that's uncomfortable or not warm and loving and inviting, that sets your chemistry. And then when you try to change when you're older, you're fighting all of that chemistry.
But it
Yes,
can be done.
it can be. And the best way to do that is through massage, actually.
Yeah,
So
you had said that before. That is really, and I remember you saying too with children that the first 72 hours, that was it 72 or 48, that you should do
72.
a full body massage
Yep.
as often as possible to bring all the systems online.
That's right. When you don't massage that child, then all of their systems stay dormant. It takes weeks and months for them to wake up, look around, make eye contact, understand where they are, walk, run, talk. I mean, all of that gets accelerated tremendously when you do that full body massage constantly over that first 72 hours. You're bringing everything online. They don't have any allergies. They end up being intuitive almost from the get-go. They walk and run at 6 months instead of a year and a half. It's a whole different creature.
Hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we got too offline on that for the densities and dimensions. Is there something? Okay, so the actual question was, are they interchangeable? Those two words, density and dimension.
Yeah, kind of. The density will be associated with a dimension. The
Okay.
dimension will tell you pretty much what the density is. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question. Um, and I'm going back to the classes that I took from you like 20, 30 years ago.
Okay. Hope I can
So,
remember what I said.
okay, if we went and talked about the dream class,
Oh,
did
okay.
you say that when we dream, we go to another dimension? Or is it
Sometimes.
dimension and realities? Are dimensions and realities the same thing?
No, they're related. A dimension can hold a whole bunch of realities. The third
Okay.
dimension has right now roughly 8 billion. How many people are there? So there's 8 billion realities in this particular zone, in this dimension. And everybody lives in their own world. We think it's all the same world, but it's not. Everybody has their own perception. You see the world, you feel the world, you know the world, you respond to it in your own way. So,
Okay. You had said that when you go and you dream, you go someplace else, okay? But then you had also said that when you're making decisions and you have all these different opportunities, so let's say you have 4 or 5 different opportunities.
okay.
And if you by looking at all those different opportunities, did you not say that we can split those out into different dimensions where we're actually living those? Or is that something different?
Not sure I get what you mean. Why would you want to, if they're different realities, they're already split out.
Okay, that's where I'm confused. So let's say I had to make a decision between am I going to take this career, career A, am I going to
Oh,
do career B, or am I going to do career C? Okay, let's put it that way. So just by thinking about those three possible possibilities, am I creating a dimension where I'm actually doing those?
no. Okay.
Okay.
You don't create dimensions, but you do create your own personal timeline. And so what you're doing is taking let's say, career path A and saying, kind of, what could I do with this? Where is this going to take me? How is this going to unfold? And if you're skilled, you can go into the future, you can let it unfold, watch it unfold, and say, oh, that's crap. I don't want that. We're not going to take that option. You do the same thing with career path B and with C and maybe D and E. And you keep on looking until you find something that's like, oh, I want that. And then you go for that. So your
Okay, so what
choice,
happens with all those other pieces that you went and looked at? Are they still going on?
they become kind of wispy. Yes. Consciousness creates. So
Okay.
and that to me, when I discovered that, it was like, that's a huge waste of consciousness. And my own teachers were like, yep, it sure is. You should know what you want. We don't. We're not encouraged to know what we want. It's like, okay. But they said all of that is part of your energy. And you can reclaim that later. I have not quite figured out how to reclaim all of that. I don't know that I want to. Some of it is crap creation. Um,
Okay.
like, no, I don't want that. So there's got to be a transmutation kind of process in there. And I just haven't had time to follow up on that. So
So I know I've kind of totally confused the whole thing there for a minute. So if we go back to the dream thing, is the dream thing the same thing as the making a choice and between options?
to some extent, yes. Typically, when you have a dream, depending on what are you doing in that dream, are you creating reality somewhere because you need to keep your consciousness alive and have the consciousness has to have something to focus on. You are alive in consciousness. Consciousness never goes to sleep. It needs it's the nature of consciousness to create. So it's
Mhm.
going to create realities. So let's say that you say, okay, I'm just going to go create something while I'm sleeping because it's the nature of consciousness to create. And you have trained yourself to pay attention, to remember your dreams and know what you're doing in those dreams.
Mhm.
Then you can look at that dream and say, what was I thinking that I created that? And you can begin to change yourself and grow yourself. So that's one thing that we do when we're dreaming. We do have other realities that we wish. If you have something that you have always, I wish I had done that. I wish I had married him. I wish I had gone to school for that. I wish I had taken that opportunity and made that investment. And that's a deep wish. Then those things will begin. You will go in your dreams and you will create the reality in which you did marry that guy. You did take that course in college and take that career path. You did make that investment for good or for bad, or. And so that does create other realities. We are multidimensional people. And those other realities are unfolding in 3D because you're a 3D creator at this point in time. Okay.
Okay, so just to kind of go back to that then, what we're
Okay.
doing with dreams and what we're doing with decision making and that, those are realities that we're looking at and creating. They're
Yeah.
not a dimension. They're not a dimension.
So what do you call a dimension?
Well, you've got the 3D and the 4D dimensions.
Or what is it?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. So you're using, I don't want to make you wrong, but you can't, a reality unfolds within a dimension
Okay.
because it uses the frequencies of that dimension.
Okay, so we're in the 3D dimension doing those things.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Now let's go back to the original question. Can we go to other dimensions? We create all these alternate realities, yes. But once in a while, we will go to another dimension. That could be an ET dimension. That could be a very unusual landscape in another dimension. That could be an encounter with another form of intelligence. Could be plant intelligence. It could be, something totally unfamiliar. You can have experiences on other planets. It's yes, you can go to other dimensions, and typically you will remember those dreams like you've been, hooked up to an electric socket, like, oh wow. Um, so those the first few times that I went elsewhere, I have never forgotten those. There have been some that I have had that I remember the getting there. I don't remember what actually happened there, or I remember the coming home, the deceleration, the stepping down to the frequency level that I was most familiar with, which is 3D. And so, yeah, you'll remember. If you come across an ET, you'll remember.
So when you said that you went to these different dimensions, did you do it in your dream time or did you actually do meditation time and do it on purpose or
Um,
both?
both but not so much. Well, I can't really say that. I've experimented and explored so many things now. Yes, I have been in the body, out of the body, in meditation, out of meditation. I discovered that you can go to other dimensions while you're busy chopping carrots, or while you're pulling weeds in the garden, or working on your computer, or brushing your teeth, which is kind of mindless. And
Hmm.
all of a sudden you're somebody else looking at yourself in the mirror and realizing, oh wow, who's that? So Yeah, and most people skip over that stuff. They don't have any reason to pay attention. They don't have any use for that kind of information. But when you're like me, who is studying what is the nature of consciousness and how do things behave, how do we behave, what do we do with all this extraordinary consciousness, then those things are of interest. So.
Okay. All right. Have we deviated too much, or do you think we've answered that question?
Yeah, I think, well, let me say also that dreams, we often will create an alternate future that is designed just to give us an idea of what is the outcome. Like when I say, okay, I want to have a dream that shows me what is the outcome of this choice. How am I feeling about this choice 3 months down the road or 6 months down the road? And then I'll have a dream. And it's a lot of symbolism. You wouldn't think it was an answer, maybe, but because I know the language of energy and symbolism, it tells me everything I need to know.
Mhm.
And I have changed direction entirely just on the basis of a single dream. So it's like, I think I'm not going to do that, or I need to do that, or whatever it is, whatever the message in the dream was. So we use consciousness for all sorts of useful tasks besides just, keeping ourselves entertained by creating reality. We are natural creators. So,
Okay. And that's the reason why you pay attention to your dreams, is so that you can see what kind of information is coming from them in case we do need to make a change on our path.
right. That
Okay.
dream will show you what you're capable of creating. And usually
Yeah.
it's like, oh, okay. This is pretty boring. I think I need to do something different.
Yeah.
So,
The second question is,
okay.
since it is common to use the word dimensions as it relates to space and time, and density as it relates to vibration and consciousness, how do density and dimension correlate?
Oh, I think we already answered that when we said a dimension is a range of frequencies and the density of, let's say, 3D frequencies is in the 3D range.
Okay.
The frequencies that permit the expanded consciousness to operate, those are they are common to the next dimension. So
Okay.
when you get into 4D and 5D, you really have to, um, I'll use the word stretch. You really have to stretch your frequency range. And when you do that, you will feel like a goosebumpy energy, like champagne bubbles moving through your whole system. And that lets you know that yes, you're moving up into that higher range. And when you get up there, then you might have some difficulty seeing, because it's a little harder to see until you get used to that range. You may hear, you may feel, you may just
Okay.
know. So, yeah.
So if when you get up to the higher things like that, can it make you feel like you're dizzy and disoriented if
Yeah.
if you're expanded out too far?
Yeah. And if you are really somebody who's afraid to let go or to get out of I'm going to call it your usual box of feeling, then you might really hang on and not be able to stretch at all. But there's a sense almost of floating and of being incredibly fluid. And that just goes with that higher consciousness, the motion, the movement, the way you hold your body. All of that is very different when you get into the higher frequencies.
Okay. So a lot of people say that, oh, you should stay grounded. But if we try to ground ourselves all the time,
Yeah.
isn't that going to prevent us from being able to expand?
Right. It does.
Okay.
Grounding is for when you want to heal and you want to get yourself back in a pile. But when you want to go out and you want to go visiting elsewhere, you have to let go of that. And the grounding, if it's well done, you will trust that you'll come back. You'll come back to that sense of self. I will say this, if you have an experience, I'll call it an altered state in which your entire frequency set has been altered and moved to a higher frequency, when you come back, you're going to be different. You will have an awareness that is just going to grow. Like, what was that? What happened to me? Who did that? We're always looking to blame somebody. But that what that does is open a door or a window to an understanding that that was different. I don't know what that was about. It's the reaction most people have. Wow, what was that?
I'm kind of wondering if maybe all this talk about grounding, oh, you should be grounding yourself, if it's trying to draw us away from expanding and increasing our consciousness.
Well, grounding is, what do you mean by grounding? Let me ask you that. What happens
Um,
when you're grounding?
you bring yourself down in and connect them. Well, I usually ground into Mother Earth and
Okay, so okay, so I see what you're saying. Grounding is when you take your shoes off and walk barefoot on the earth.
no, not that kind of grounding.
That is grounding.
Yes, I
That
know.
is what creates that feeling of being a healthy, well-adjusted, well-balanced individual. Okay?
Okay, maybe it's the type where,
If you pretend you're grounding, let me interrupt you for a second. You're not really grounding at all. It's bare feet on bare earth or on wet grass or walking in the ocean up to your ankles.
right.
That's grounding. And that is what keeps you grounded when you want to, quote, disassociate, which they have made a very bad word. That's for crazy people, etc. But if you're going to move into other dimensions, you have to let go of this one. And
Okay.
that means you have to disassociate. And in order to do that from a place of control, self-control, and power, you need to be well grounded to start. When you
Okay, I guess where I'm coming from, when you the stuff that you just said, grounding, I call that earthing. Kind of
Oh,
what I'm thinking more about grounding is to get out of your being all airy fairy and coming back down a little bit so that you're
you're
here.
you're using common sense.
I don't
Oh,
have any common sense.
okay. Well, in my humble opinion, the grounding that you're talking about is a psychological grounding, and it's an imaginary thing. It doesn't really work if you don't have your bare feet on bare earth. You can't hold that grounding,
Hmm.
that common sense.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people imagine, and I don't want to criticize the imagining process, because imagination, the imaginal realm, is where we create. And when you want to make something happen, when you want to heal somebody, when you want to stop something, what you have to imagine it, feel it, see it, hear it, all at the same time. And 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 at the same time you're doing all that, you're filling that with energy and this powerful golden white light. So most people, I think was it you I was talking to? Most people can't think and imagine and hear that. I mean, they don't, when they want something to happen, they don't have any power behind what they're wanting to happen, because they don't bother to take it into the imaginal realm and create it by seeing it, hearing it, feeling it. Uh, Remember Olga Corbett, the little Olympic gymnast who won a
Oh,
gold
okay.
medal? Um, Her process, and it was one of the best examples of somebody who's standing on the, I don't know what it was, the tarp or the runway or whatever, going to go and run and do her gymnastic thing. And you could see her getting into the feel. She was back in that imaginal realm, creating every feeling, every move, bringing every muscle online, imagining, seeing, hearing, feeling, all at the same time. And then boom, she let herself go in. She executed all those moves perfectly. And same thing with Michael, I forget what his name was, last name, the diver.
Oh,
Same.
okay.
That's what the imaginal realm is for. It's for creating what you want to happen. And people don't do that. They just sort of blurt it out and and it comes out without the power. It comes out without the vision, without the words to shape it, without the feeling to guide it, and to guide the individual who's projecting that whatever it is, expressing that.
Okay.
So it's like throwing bubble gum on the wall to see if it'll stick. It's not.
Okay.
The imaginal realm is where all creation begins.
Hmm.
So
And that's where we have to start having our belief system to recognize that what's actually happening is happening in that imaginal realm.
yes, yes, paying attention to how much time are you spending in that imaginal realm. Some people spend all their time there. They're not here at all. They don't pay attention to anything. And when you interrupt their internal imaginal process, they're like waking up, like, what? What did you say? Because they were elsewhere, busy creating, but not doing so consciously. And so we
So
have a mess.
there's a lot of things then that you can do in the dream world.
Oh my,
You can
yes.
go and ask the questions, or you can go and you can do work where you're actually helping people around the earth or
Right,
other places.
right.
So, okay.
Yeah, you don't know how important it is to be there for somebody struggling on the other side of the planet. Just once in a while, sit down and let yourself imagine going to where somebody's in need, and you just maybe you just stand by and hold their hand. Maybe you just give them a message. You're loved. It's okay. That whatever. We that's something that we don't do. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's demanding. The reality that we have to pay attention to here is demanding. For God's sakes, don't be doing some of that work when you're driving down the highway 75 miles an hour. Pay attention to what's going on the highway. But when you have a moment that's free and you don't know what to do with yourself, go help somebody. It's you become, that's angel work. You become like an angel, showing
Yeah,
up, helping.
we spoke about that in the last video, but that's good to kind of repeat it here because it
Yeah,
gives people an idea that, there's multiple things you can do in that dream world.
right.
So, okay. We have a third question.
Okay.
How can we become conscious, deliberate creators of our desired reality?
Oh,
I came across the teachings of Neville Goddard and Florence Scovel Shinn. They taught that by using visualization, emotions, scriptings, and affirmations, we can work with our subconscious mind, which will bring forth and manifest our desired reality and outcomes. Is this statement true? This was sent in by someone.
it's true, but it's only a partial statement. Neville Goddard comes a little bit closer, I think, because he says, if you can't feel it, it isn't going to happen. You have to be able to feel it. So, yes, we could be having such a beautiful world if we would just use our consciousness. And in the beginning, don't start off with, okay, I'm gonna envision a kingdom full of riches and beautiful men and all kinds of concubines and whatever, women at your disposal if you're a man, or men at your disposal if you're. Don't start off with that. Start off with the traditional parking lot thing. Find me a parking space when I get to the parking lot, and expand from there. and get in the habit of using consciousness to just make life a little bit easier, a little bit smoother for yourself. I think, besides I don't want to be tongue in cheek, the parking lot example. I've talked before about coming up to a an intersection in my car, knowing that it's really hard to make a left turn. And so before I even, start the car, I'm envisioning that intersection and saying, when I get to that intersection, please make it a smooth and easy turn. Make space for me to turn without, risking your life trying to make that turn. And for the last few months, I'll get to that intersection or that left turn, and there's not a car in sight. It's like, oh wow, thank you. And be sure you say thank you. Other little things that you would really like it if your daughter called you or your son called you. Just send that message. How you doing? I'd really appreciate it if you call me. We don't use our consciousness for all the things that bring little joys, little pleasures, make life easier. And then
Yeah.
we can progress. So,
I live down here in Tennessee. There's a lot of curves on the roads and a lot of little, I guess we're not allowed to call them mountains here because of Colorado. So we're supposed to say the hills of
oh,
Tennessee.
those are mountains in my estimation.
They're mountains. But
Yeah,
anyway, when I go out especially when it gets more towards evening, I'll say, all the animals are safely in their fields. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
that's
And
right.
I have been really lucky. I've not run, and there's a lot of deer. So I've been really lucky. So that's a really good one. And we've talked about this before in like our classes that talk to the elements. And you were talking about that the parking spot. I always do the one if it's raining, will you please stop raining when I get to the building so that I don't have to use an umbrella because I'm usually have my hands full of stuff.
Right.
And the rain will always respond. It will stop raining so I can get into the building without an umbrella.
That's a
And
perfect example. Yes. Yes.
and
And
if it's really hot, I've asked the wind if I'm outside. I said, "Can you send me a little breeze? It's getting a little bit hot here."
right.
And it will do that. Or I say, "Can you cover up the sun for a few minutes for me?
Yeah,
And is that okay, sun?"
I've done
And
that. Yeah. I
yep,
just need a little shade for a moment. Yeah.
yep. And it's done it. So we can talk to the elements. It's our it would you say it's a God-given right if we want to bring the word God into this or
I don't know that I would bring the word God into it, but I would say that it's a natural thing. It's not a right at all. It's part of the being of consciousness to create. You're the being, you got the consciousness, you are the consciousness, use it. When you don't use it and you don't develop it, that's what that whole story, speaking of God and Bible stories,
right.
you haven't used your talent.
And I
No
always say
offense.
thank you too. I always try to be in gratitude.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, I bent my thumb back somehow, did something, and it was just throbbing. And I was like, look, I don't have time. And I'm put my fingers so that they were on the thumb like this and just said, fingers, can you help this thumb? It only took, I'm going to say about a minute, maybe not even that, maybe a minute and 10 or 15 seconds. And all of a sudden, I felt energy shoot up the arm and the thumb was fine. And I went about whatever I was doing. I had been pulling weeds big time for an hour and a half every morning. And I think that was what the thumb was sore for. That disappeared. We don't stop to heal ourselves. When we hurt something or we get an ache, I stop, put my hand over that part of the body if I can reach it and say, what's going on? What are you calling me for?
What do
And
you need?
yeah, and I'll get some kind of an idea. Sometimes I just need to change a position. Sometimes I need to take a drink of water. Sometimes I need to stop what I'm doing and go, move so that something can move in that particular area.
Hmm.
We don't need to suffer, and we just don't think of using consciousness for all the things that it's meant to be used for.
So
So,
these are all these little deliberate ways of using consciousness. Talk to things.
yeah,
You may or may not get a message. You might just know. You don't get so caught up in, well, I didn't hear anything. If you just kind of know what to do, that's a
yeah,
message.
right, right. I mean, what do you think you're going to hear? It's really, what you want is the
Hmm.
success of there's nobody at the intersection. Go ahead and make your turn. The success of the rain stops.
Yes.
That's what you hear. You don't have to, nobody's going to show up with, I used to say, don't be expecting a dirigible to float by in the sky with a banner saying, congratulations, you have succeeded at whatever it is you were trying to do. It doesn't work like that. The response is immediate because we are built on a principle of cooperation and everything cooperates. And we're getting to that place in our evolution of our civilization where that is going to become obvious, that cooperation is the only way that we're going to survive. Competition, yeah, you can maybe compete with yourself a little bit, but the kind of competition that we see out there is incredibly destructive, and it does not allow for the inclusion of everybody. And so we do have some changes that we're going to see big time
And the
over the,
difference between 3D and 4D is going from competition to cooperation.
yeah, right. 3D is make a living. 4D is make a world, shape it the way you want. 5D is heal a world. And so the world that you have made becomes like the pot, you begin to polish and edit and correct little tiny details. 5D is amazing. So, yeah. So when you go back to the question about is it true that you need to visualize? Yeah, that helps tremendously. But what has to follow that is work, physical action. And that could be words, that could be some kind of work, that could be a sense of commitment. If it's a big task, you may have to say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start down this path. I'm going to create such and such. I'm going to gather such and such so I can create whatever it is.
How
Um,
do affirmations fit into this?
Affirmations are a wonderful way to keep yourself, how do I say it?
Focused?
Not only focused, but in the spirit of whatever it is you're trying to make happen. When you start telling yourself, I don't know, I don't hardly use affirmations anymore except to say thank you. Thank you for that beauty. Thank you for that insight. Thank you for that healing. Thank you for that phone call or that opportunity or whatever. The affirmation is the thank you.
Hmm.
When you're starting out, the affirmations might be totally different because you're trying to change your life to get flowing in the direction you want it to flow. When it starts to flow, then the affirmations become mostly thank you. So there is a little bit of a difference there when you're starting out. And you have to talk yourself into certain things. I remember um, telling myself, no, I really didn't want that Pepsi. I don't want the effects of that Pepsi. That was like 35 years ago. I just stopped drinking all soda. And I don't think it took maybe even a week. And I was no longer interested in soda of any sort, period. I still wanted tea when I couldn't have tea. And I still wanted potatoes when I couldn't have potatoes, and tomatoes and green peppers. Um, but after years of towing that line and saying, okay, I can't have those things. unless I want a full-blown attack of rheumatoid arthritis all over again. Once I got to the point where it was like, okay, why am I not using my consciousness to try to correct that? And so I started and I took all kinds of action to try to help that as well. And once in a while, I can have a little tomato, I don't eat a tomato like I used to. Like I used to eat them like apples.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't have a big pile of mashed potatoes and gravy, but I'll have a taste and I'll enjoy it. I had a potato dish back at Christmas, and it was like, yeah, it was delicious, and I didn't have any bad effect. And I've just left it alone. It's like, thank you for that. It was such a treat.
Yeah.
So yeah, you affirm what you want to be physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And what you want to do spiritually is let me bring forth the real me. That's my real spirit self. What does that real self want? What's she willing to do? What's she not willing to do?
She
So
wants those potatoes.
I know I did. I resented not being able to have tea, potatoes, and tomatoes for a long time. And it was not until I got past the resentment that I said, well, let's see what I can do about this. And voila, you
So
know,
if you're saying affirmations that you don't believe because you want them to make a change,
because you want what you want.
no, like you were saying, well,
Hmm.
if you were trying to, I can't remember how you
If
said
you
it.
if you
So
don't,
like you were trying to stay away from the potatoes or the soda. Let's say you don't believe you can. So
I
is there
can't
a certain,
stay away from those.
yeah, so is there a way that you can change your words to make that affirmation work, or is it just listening to the affirmation over and over again that your body just actually shifts and does that?
When you are trying to let go of something, let's just use sugar, for example, because I have very little sugar in my life, almost none. Um, that I'm highly allergic to white sugar. So it's like, bah. um, and I don't mind that at all. It was when I finally got to the point where I realized, look, those are the limitations of this particular body at this point in time. Either you're going to honor what that body is trying to tell you it needs and doesn't need, or you're not. And the discipline of listening to the body is the discipline that has to be developed in order to be healthy and to last a long time. And I wanted to be healthy. When you have arthritis to the degree that I did, you never forget that. You don't want anything that is going to cause that again. You might flirt with it a little bit now and then, but when you break that, you know, that message from the body that says, don't touch that, there's eventually you come to a place where you don't want it and you don't even think of it. So
Okay.
that's a different kind of thing than trying to make yourself believe you shouldn't eat this. Okay. If you don't have to pay for it immediately, you're going to keep eating it.
Yeah.
I had to pay immediately. So I would immediately, I would have something that would just flare up. And I didn't want any disfigured joints. I remember having a woman in Florida when I was the principal of a school down there, and she came in and her thumb went 90 degrees. No, it was 90 degrees in this direction. And I said to her, what happened to your thumb? And she was like, I don't know. I woke up one day and it was growing the wrong way. And I didn't know anything about arthritis at that point in time, but I was soon to learn that's what happens. I had an aunt whose hand was growing right along the ulna, which is the bone in the arm. And, that hand, I can't even bend it that way, but her hand was growing that way. She couldn't eat. She couldn't hold a hairbrush. She couldn't do anything. I didn't want that. I really didn't want that. And I didn't want the pain. So, if you don't have to pay for your transgressions, then you're going to cheat a little. So
I don't know why you look at me that way, Penny.
are we
We
having a
do
moment of guilt?
cheat. Yes, we do cheat. We're human,
We do.
and you cheat, you get over it, and you get back into the gear and everything and try to do what you need to do with your body and all that.
Right.
One more
Well,
question
let
on the
me
app.
add one little thing there. When you develop up to a certain level of sensitivity, the affirmations and the discipline is much easier. So the thing that you maybe want to be aware of is that if you're eating something that's taking you down, you're not going to be able to get to that high level of sensitivity. It's
Right.
harder. But once you get there, the things that are not good for you, you're not interested in. There's a change in the total consciousness of your being. So just, put that in your back pocket.
Hmm.
Just keep working, you'll get there.
With your, what is your take with affirmations on certain words that you shouldn't say? Like I've heard some people say, well, never say the word want because you're always going to be in the wanting.
That's pretty accurate.
Okay.
Words are power. They
So,
are incredibly powerful.
so say something more like I would like to experience instead of want, or say I desire.
No, I am whatever. I am
Okay.
125 pounds, or I am 50 pounds or 80 pounds if you're men or whatever. I am perfectly healthy. I am feeling the joy of that experience. It's the I am that is the critical piece.
Okay, so there's a lot of people, including myself, who have trouble with weight, and I've ever since I was younger.
Oh,
So that's a perfect example. If I say I am 125 pounds and it's not true, how do I get to that using affirmations?
that is the affirmation. The I am
Okay.
statement is the
Okay.
affirmation. You might say, I am interested in healthy food. I am losing weight daily. I am thrilled that I lost 5 pounds. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am, whatever it is. I am no longer interested in what would be in sugar or pie or whatever. Lots of people eat lots of crap that I'm like, oh, okay. I'll have a bite, maybe a bite, just to be social. But I don't want a whole piece. Once in a
Hmm.
while I have a whole piece. Once in a while I have a handful of something, you know, and so I usually pay. It's like I'm not interested in paying.
Okay, I don't know. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add to that about the being deliberate creators using consciousness?
That's what we are here to develop. I think let me encourage everybody, develop the creative side of yourself. And you don't have to want or try to create anything unusual or special. Start by just recreating your life or creating it intentionally on purpose. Watch your words, watch your actions. Get out of the box, shock your spouse and your siblings and etc. But be ready. Be ready for the blowback from that. But yeah, be creators. We're moving in that direction. The few times that I have entered into the really high states of consciousness where things just happen, the minute you think it, yeah, you need to understand, we need to understand that we're moving toward incredible power. Right now, we're not very powerful. So we need to practice a lot of things.
We need to practice on relationships too. And you had mentioned that before about your spouse and that. And I remember I
Yeah.
had this one person at the office when I worked in the corporate world, and she loved me until they put me in her position and demoted her. And
Okay.
she would find everything wrong she could about me. And on the days I would go and I would imagine, I would do an affirmation and I would send out love to her. And on the days that I sent out love to her, she
Uh-huh.
didn't do a thing to me. On the days that I forgot, oh my Lord.
Uh-huh. There you go.
So you're right. You can do things with your consciousness and send that ahead of time and change relationships.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. And when you change a single word in that relationship, it changes the whole relationship.
Yeah.
So just, yeah, explore, experiment, become a creator on
Yes.
purpose.
Thank you, Penny.
Okay. All right. We'll call it good for today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you got something out of this shredder. We'll be back with some more. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.